to the Show and Go podcast, a baseball podcast to help amateur players take their game to the next level.
There's no crying in baseball.
Forget about the curveball, Ricky. Give him the heater.
You're killing me, Smalls.
Candlesticks always make a nice wedding present.
Oh, people take vacations shorter than that. Pick me out a winner, Bobby. Now here is your Show and Go team.
Yeah, here
Remote.
we go. Remote? Yeah, we're doing this from space. What are we doing? Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Show and Go. This is a baseball podcast to help and educate the amateur player as well as coaches and parents about the game within the game. My name is, hold on, I'm reading this, Tim Dillard, and I've been a professional pitcher in baseball for the last 16 years. And if, you know, where I'm seeing Ben is to my left.
I'm right here.
Which you usually are. Anyway, Ben Zobrist, yeah. What have you done? Oh, yeah, 2016 World Series MVP. Oh, my bad. And then below me in the Brady Bunch thing, if I'm looking straight down, is
Hey, what's up, Tim?
Hey, I'm not on your ceiling, dude. Is head baseball coach at Trevecca Nazarene University here in beautiful Nashville, Tennessee, Ryan Smaltz. Of course, we may be under snow in a few hours. Never know. Right now, it's nice outside.
I won't be under snow.
Zoe, where are you?
I'm so jealous of that right now. Right now, I am in Arizona, Mesa, Arizona, right next to our complex, staying at a hotel down here.
Oh, my bad. So it's kind of the opposite of snow outside. You're in Arizona.
It's amazing. It's 70 and sunny.
You just
rough.
picked the coldest. You picked the coldest week in Nashville and said, "You know what? I just need to get a little work in on the field in Arizona."
Yeah,
so
that's right.
Yeah.
I knew timing wise what I was doing for sure.
Nice.
I just found a Band-Aid stuck to my pants. This is from my kid that fell today. There was nothing but a bruise, so it's a blank Band-Aid.
We go through Band-Aids, and they all are. They have cartoons on them, right? Yeah. Well, all the kids' Band-Aids now. You have to.
They're stickers.
You have to
the
get
Band-Aids are really stickers. They're not to stop blood. It's like a sticker. It's a badge of honor.
It's just something to emotionally make them feel better.
But when it gets stuck in the dryer and it goes in the washer, it's like, why is it stuck to clothes? Like, where was it?
Wait, who does laundry? I do the laundry.
I do laundry.
There's nothing.
I know you do.
Yeah.
There's nothing more disgusting than a used Band-Aid just laying somewhere. That's so gross. I hate that. I'm sorry. It freaks me out. I don't know. Just pull out a Band-Aid. I'm like, man.
I think everybody probably feels the same way you do about that, Biggie.
Yeah, I don't think there's anybody that's like, ooh, a used Band-Aid. You want to hear something super gross? So we had catered
No,
food.
I don't know.
All right,
no,
never mind.
Okay. All right, let's
get
to something here.
Story.
Oh, boom. Segue.
Yeah,
Hall of Fame.
Hall of Fame.
So,
baby.
yes, it's going to be fun conversation. We get to talk today about new member of the Hall of Fame, Mariano Rivera. Not only the newest member, but also the only member ever to be voted into the Hall of Fame unanimously. Every writer voted him in. That's never happened before in the history of anybody going into the Hall of Fame. And it's pretty special. And so we want to talk about that a little bit. I got to play against him for a number of years, so I have a couple different stories. I have a decent average off the guy. I haven't looked it up. We should probably look that up here.
For the record, Zoe decided this was going to be the topic, so now we know why. We were wondering why. Now we know. All right.
Well, you know, right into my sweet spot, just like Mariano's pitches.
He doesn't listen to our podcast. He'll never.
No. He's from everything I've heard and experienced. He's one amazing guy as well as obviously a great baseball player. So here's a something to start this off with, I guess, fellas. Mariano Rivera is known as the guy to kind of bring in this one pitch that now just about everybody's throwing, the cutter, right?
Cutter, baby.
How is it? Yeah. How is it? Do you think that guys used to actually throw that pitch before? He just threw it in a different way and was able to do that. What do you think the deal is with that?
I feel like people have probably been throwing it for a while. It's just, it was rare back in the day, probably to even call it a cutter. You know, if you're talking about a few decades ago, I don't think anybody, 70s or 60s, like people probably didn't have a name for it. It was probably like fastball and they would throw it and it would go this way and that way. And I think only recently in the last, 10 or 20 years where people are like, here's my two-seamer, here's my cutter, here's my four-seamer, and everybody has a name for everything. But I've played with a lot of cutter ball guys, and not a lot, only a few on the ranks coming up, because it's actually a pretty hard pitch to throw. That's all I got.
Well, so about his cutter, like I've heard, I don't know if this is like a legend or if this is really true, how it happened or not, but he didn't really develop that pitch like other people do. And he calls his cutter a gift from God, because apparently, as the story goes, he just was in the minor leagues, not doing anything exceptional, wakes up one day and just starts playing catch, and the ball just starts cutting. And everybody's like, wow, where'd that come from? And he's like, I don't know. Ball just started, I don't know if he gripped it different or the ball started coming out a little bit different, but it just started cutting on him. And he just kind of kept with it. And all of a sudden it's unhittable, and he kind of, that he just kind of woke up one day and it appeared. Have you guys heard that before? Or is that just...
No, I heard a story. I played with a guy named Eric Almonte, and he played with Mariano Rivera. I don't know if he was there when this actually happened, but he was telling a story one time, and it was, he couldn't stop throwing it. Like he was trying not to throw it because it was coming out of his hand, and he was like, why is it doing that? And he kept trying to adjust it, and it just kind of kept happening like it was an accident. And then a pitching coach came by and was like, just keep doing that. And he was just like, yeah. So that's kind of the way I heard it, but it was very accidental. It wasn't like something he'd been working on for several months, or a whole season or a couple years trying to get to that point. It was literally an overnight thing.
Yeah, he's obviously a man of faith, and he called it a gift from God. It just boom, all of a sudden happened, and I mean the rest is history.
That says something about just recognizing things that you do well, that you didn't have any sort of plan for. And I think specifically that in that regard, he obviously had a good arm. He obviously could throw hard and he could pitch and things like that. But with a pitch like that nobody's really ever seen before, I mean, there's something like that in everybody. I think that everybody has something about them that makes them super unique. That is just absolutely a gift. It may not be in the game of baseball. It might be in something else in your life, but finding that thing is kind of really important for everybody. Figuring out what that is for you is kind of paramount to even playing baseball or whatever. And I think kids at a young age, they're so impressionable. How do you say that word, by the way?
I think you said it wrong 4 times.
They're impressionable.
Yeah.
And I feel like they need to know, they need to figure out eventually what is that thing for them. Mariano never probably thought when he was 12 years old that he was going to be throwing a cutter, for years and years and years and be the unanimous Hall of Famer. What do you guys think? I mean, I'm assuming he didn't feel that way.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just like a young Tim Dillard who thought he was going to be the next, amazing catcher who could run and hit for power. And that dream was stifled, and I became a pitcher. And so, yeah, that was going to be my special thing.
And you have yet to figure out how to throw a cutter.
Yeah.
Down under.
I've tried cutters and fork balls and palm ball. I did play with a guy that threw a palm ball. It's very difficult. But yeah, it reminds me of the story. You guys remember Roy Oswalt played for the Astros and the Phillies? There's a story about him where he did you hear this story? Have you heard this story?
No, I'm just saying he had he had a really, really good curveball, right? Like that's his thing.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, go ahead.
12-6, filth. He was kind of a little guy with just a unbelievable arm. And one of the things, the way the story goes, I've heard it. He's from Mississippi, so I've heard the story over and over again since I'm from there. and I hear that he was working on something and got electrocuted. Have you heard this? Or no? Like it was
No, I have not heard this story.
I did not see the story going that way at all.
Electric.
Well,
Was
you
he
guys
struck
say
by
it like
lightning or what?
No. I think when you say it like that, it sounds like I'm making it up. Maybe I am, but I've heard it from several people. And he was doing something, and he got like an electrical shock. And during the off season, he's a farming guy, and like he was working on the farm or doing something. And like after that, his arm was better. Like it did something to his arm where he was like, man, it feels great. And literally went out.
In there.
Yeah, I know. He started throwing lightning bullets.
Yeah,
Anyway.
I feel like this is the time when you tell kids not to stick their fingers in light sockets. I feel like.
Yeah, take it from me. I was like, knife? It's like Spider-Man. It's like, kids, by the way, you don't want to go playing with spiders. Trying to get bitten.
So Mariano wakes up with this gift, right?
Yeah.
And he goes out and he starts just spotting this thing up and moving it in and out, and it's like a four-seam fastball. That's what people don't realize is I got to face him the first time I faced him. I watched him on TV several years, and you're watching this pitch come in and move into a left-handed hitter away from a righty. And, you know, when I'm at the plate, I'm like, well, what's it actually going to look like? I mean, I know it's going to move a lot. Even though he's throwing it at 95 miles an hour, it's still going to move a lot. But as the ball came out of the hand, the first pitch I saw, it looks just like a four-seam fastball. You don't see any seams. That's the thing about a lot of cutters is you do see a little something there that makes it. You can see the ball kind of spin in that direction. You can kind of
little bit of tilt on it.
Yeah, there's some tilt. I guess that's a good word. But essentially, the ball is just boring in on a left-handed hitter, and you're seeing something there for a cutter. But with Mariano, you didn't see anything. All you see is it's like a four-seam fastball, and it just goes right at you and then just moves. And it's not a lot of cutters like move down a little bit. This one's like going straight across. Almost feels like it's almost like coming up at you. It just kind of had just this weird look to it. But I'll say this. My first time I faced him, there was a man, I believe, on first base maybe.
What was this man's name? There was a man on second.
There was a guy. There was a player, a baseball. So I get up to bat. We're down by 1 run. Mariano comes into the game. Sandman plays. I'm like, this is.
I just got chills already. Just here thinking about Sandman playing.
This is not the guy I want to face at the end of the game. I'm like a first or second year player when this happens. But I had a plan. I had an idea of what I was going to try to do because I'm thinking, well, he comes into the left-handed hitters, but I like the ball in. However, he's not going to put it where I want it to be. It's going to be like further in than that because he knows that. So I'm going to step off the plate. And, you know, I think if he sees me off the plate, he's not going to want to come as far in there. So that's usually the time when he tries to paint the outside corner. He can do that. So I'm like, I'm going to step off the plate. And then when he throws that pitch, I'm going to assume he's going for that outside corner. And I'm just going to jump on the outside corner. Sure enough, that's what happened. I put a decent swing on it. Lines over the shortstop into left center. I end up with a triple. Guy scores. The lead is blown.
No way.
Dead serious. It was like, I was like, did that just happen? I slid into third base. I'm like, no way.
Gosh.
I just got a hit off Mariano Rivera. I couldn't believe
tricked
it.
him.
I couldn't believe it.
That's unbelievable.
That's a great story. I want to go back to some. Well, after we hear,
there it is.
Man, is there a better walk-up song or warm-up song than that? There isn't.
Not for a reliever, bro. That's the best.
Hold on, one second. All right, copyright infringement. We'll stop.
So I want to go back to a point you made about him like perfecting one thing. And as a coach, I think about this because, you know, you only have a certain amount of time, you know, either as a coach or as a player to develop your game. And I think a lot of people spend, you know, say 80% of their time working on things that they're not very good at, you know, just to try to maybe kind of balance out their game a little bit. And the things they are good at, you know, the things that are really good at, they just kind of stay there. They don't really try to improve more upon those things that they're really good at, and I think that's a balancing act I have to go through as a coach. I think about players, and certain players are never going to be a power hitter, so I'm not saying that you need to try to turn them into that, but you do have to think about that. You have to think about, what am I really good at, and what do I need, what do I want to develop? Because if you don't really concentrate on the things you're really good at, I think you're really missing something.
No, I totally agree with that. I completely agree. I used to think that, no, you need to be working more on your faults, your weaknesses. As time's gone on, while I think that you need to work on those things, especially if it's a gaping hole in your swing or your arsenal as a pitcher or something, you definitely have to work on the weaknesses. But more than that, I think you have to hone the strengths. You have to realize what you're really good at and how you bring the most value to the team, because there's no one player that's the perfect player, right? So every guy brings their own thing to the team that makes the team better, and you got to realize what your thing is. What is it that makes you good?
This what we're talking about may be more evident as a pitcher than a hitter.
Yeah.
Because I mean, as a hitter, I mean, you got your defense and hitting, and there's a lot of things you got to. But as a pitcher, if you got one or two things that you're really, really good at, then you got a chance to make it, and your career to last a little while. What are your thoughts, Tim?
Yeah, so I was throwing a bullpen just the other day, getting ready for spring training, and one of the things I was telling one of the younger guys, because I went up to this college. Ryan, you may have heard of it. You're the head coach. But I was telling one of your guys. All right, so say you're a pitcher and you're going to throw a bullpen, and you have, let's say, 30 pitches, right? And so you want to work on your fastball. You want to be able to throw a fastball inside and outside. Sometimes you want to work up and down on both sides. So you got 4 quadrants, and let's say you're only going to throw 20 fastballs. So right there you have 4 different locations with 20 fastballs. Well, how many pitches is that? So it's 5 pitches per quadrant. So right there, you're kind of good at 4 different spots. Now, if you never throw down and in, away from a lefty and into a righty, if that's not how you pitch, then why waste pitches there, right? Like, I'm not very good at throwing, up and in, but I have to throw up and in. So instead of working on a lot of down stuff, I'm like, why don't I just throw 10 pitches up? Right. And so now I'm better at those of what I'm doing. A lot of times people go, well, I need to do this. But if you never use those pitches, if I never throw a backdoor slider, why would I work on it? Why don't I get really good throwing 10 amazing sliders in one spot that plays to lefties and righties and get really good at that spot and not waste my pitches on something I'm not going to use? So it's kind of being resourceful in what you're doing and trying to maximize what you do well and what you're going to do on the field and doing it over and over and over again as much as you can.
There's not a greater example than Mariano Rivera.
Absolutely.
I mean, for somebody to master one thing in the game of baseball, he did it better than anybody, I think. I mean, he's incredible.
Well, you talk about stuff like he's hitting the cutter in the spot that he wants 9 out of 10 times, like literally. And so can he throw a whatever changeup, and can he do this? Like, no, when he throws a bullpen, if he has to throw a bullpen to get ready for the season or in between long outings, during the season, he's throwing usually one pitch, and it's usually in one location, and then maybe he has a secondary location, but that's where his focus is, and that's where he has the most practice with it. He's not watering it down with other pitches and other locations.
Did you ever see anything other than a cutter, Zoe?
You know what? I think we did, but not till like his last year or two. Yeah. Because he started being a little bit less effective with the cutter, and it wasn't moving quite as well and he didn't have the same speed. So he did throw a few sliders in there, an occasional like 2-seam where it'd go the other way. He threw 2-seams earlier in his career, I believe, more. But then once the force or the cutter was working, I mean, I think he just perfected that more than anything. But the other thing about him too is, like, even if, let's say, he was throwing one pitch, it wasn't that he had only one thing to work on, because you look at his delivery. And every pitcher, like, to be able to repeat that delivery over and over and over again with as much consistency and health as he did, that's the kind of thing that you got to realize he was working on things. It's not that he just went out there and was like, okay, I'm just going to trust my gift. No, this guy obviously was working on every little aspect of everything that he did. They used to say he used to run around in the outfield. That's how he hurt his knee a couple years before he retired. He used to run around in the outfield every day doing
power shagging.
Shagging.
Yeah.
Yeah, Scout said that he could have been one of the best defensive center fielders in the big leagues in how athletic he was and how great of jumps he had. He was just a terrific athlete as well. I mean, I've heard stories told about him when, and scouts would think that, watch him shag during BP and think he'd be one of the best defenders in the league out there.
Well, the guy's an athlete, right? If you're going to continually get out there and repeat your delivery, you have to be an athlete. And I mean, I'm older in age now. I mean, I'm not Mariano Rivera age yet, but I power shag. You pick up little tips along the way. And there was a time when pitchers, when they're out there for BP, they don't want to be out there. So they're like, they stand still and they barely throw a ball in or they'll roll it in. And one day years ago, I was like, I'm just going to power shag. I was like, Mariano Rivera does it. Why not, Tim Dillard do it, right? It's the same thing in the offseason. I throw a football because Nolan Ryan did it. You look at these guys that have 20-year careers and you're like, let me just get a little nugget here and there and maybe I can piece together a few more years.
Yeah, I mean, if you piece together Nolan Ryan and Mariano Rivera, you get Tim Dillard.
Yeah, I mean, if you Google that, that's exactly what you'll get.
Right. Oh, man.
That's good.
Okay, hey, I got another Mariano story I need to share with you guys. Okay. So 2009, first I kind of had a breakout season. I got elected to the All-Star game in St. Louis, right? So I go to the All-Star game. I'm just can't believe I'm there around the clubhouse. There's Mariano, Derek Jeter, like all these guys. I'm looking around like, I can't believe I'm here. This is unbelievable. I go out and I'm like chatting with Jeter. I'm in his same batting practice group and talking to him out at shortstop and stuff. It was incredible. Well, I get into the game in the 7th inning, I believe. Got one at bat, struck out, went out to second base, got no place at second for the next 3 innings. But I was in the 9th inning, and the American League was winning the game. 2 outs in the game. Mariano comes in to close the game out and get, I don't know, it had to be, he had already had saves in the All-Star game before and obviously saves in the World Series and things like that. But, I knew he already had at least one All-Star save. Well, he comes in, gets a pop-up to second base.
Who's at second?
This guy. Okay. So I catch the ball, game over. I catch the ball, and my first thought is, I ain't never letting go of this thing. I'm keeping it.
You're not going to give it to him? It's wrong, dude.
So we went to second base. Listen to this. Listen. So we went to second base, high five guys or whatever. We go through the line, and I just pass him straight up. High five, pass him straight up into the clubhouse. It was such a, it was such a, what's the name? I mean, it was just a bad, it was
moment.
Selfish, yes, absolutely. But you know what I was thinking? I was thinking, I'm never going to be in an All-Star game again. This guy's got All-Star saves.
Yeah.
Like, he really wants to give it to me anyways, right?
Do you have it?
Oh, man. And I still have the ball. Yeah.
No way.
But listen, the story's not over.
I was sitting here waiting for you to say
not
yeah,
over.
back, and I decided to give it to him.
No.
Oh my
However,
God.
I did go into the clubhouse. I sat down with him while he's eating his food, getting ready to leave. I was like, "Hey, are you okay if I keep that ball for the save ball?" He goes, "Well, yeah, I guess. Go ahead."
It sounds like he wanted.
And I was like,
it.
and as soon as he said that, I was like, "Okay, thanks." And I just got up and left because I'm like, I got to run away with this thing.
You didn't give him much of an option though. Like he's gonna be the bad guy if he says no, I want it.
Yeah,
exactly.
He's going to be at the Hall of Fame induction, and he's like, I have every ball of every save I've ever had, except for the 2009 All-Star game. And Ben Zobrist stole that.
Oh man, I still feel bad about that. That was,
Really.
that was
You don't sound
definitely
like you
a
care at
selfish.
all. You don't sound like you care. There's no remorse in your voice. In fact, there's a little bit of bragging in there.
I mean, if I had if I had remorse, I probably would have given him the ball back. But it doesn't mean I still don't feel like it was kind of
that's awesome.
just not a great move.
That's a great
But I still have the ball.
Who cares, man?
I mean, have you ever done anything like that? Don't act like you've never done anything like that.
Are you looking at me? I can't tell because we're doing the first.
I'm
mobile
looking
thing,
at you.
so I can't tell. You're looking at me.
All eyes are on you right now, Tim. I know you've done something like that.
Here's where I'm at in my career. I've gotten saves. I don't get a lot of saves. I got maybe 13 saves in minor leagues, or in my career. And last time I got a save, guy ran it over to me. This is AAA baseball, and I think it was like in the 12th inning or something like that, and runs it over to me and gives it to me. He's like, "Hey man, congratulations, that's awesome." I was like, "Thanks," high five, and then I was walking into the dugout, and I was just like, I saw a kid that was like, "Can I have a ball?" And I was like, "Sure." I have tons of balls. I have tons of balls like laying around the house. I'm like, I'll pick one up and go, "This is the save I got." Who's gonna know, man? You think somebody in the minor leagues is throwing hologram stickers on that thing? No shot. But that's where I'm at. It's not a big deal.
Oh man.
Well, what do you guys think about, when I think about Rivera, not only do I think about his cutter, but I think about his mental toughness and his consistency. I mean, a lot of closers and late inning bullpen guys are real high energy, getting themselves really amped up, really max effort. He was totally different. He was like the calm, cool waters. Like I think he was like, his heart rate couldn't have been up here. Like he just seemed so relaxed and chill in that moment. And, for me, that's what's going to stand out to me was like his ability to, calm himself down in the biggest moments, I think. And I think that's a lot. There's a lot to be said for that. And there's a lot that a younger player could learn from, the way he handled himself in those moments.
Well, I got to play with another Hall of Famer. What was that guy's name? Trevor Hoffman. Oh yeah. Remember that guy? He's got some saves too. But one thing that I got from Trevor Hoffman is that, yes, very, very mentally strong. Early on in his career, the guy was throwing fuzz nuggets. Like he was just throwing missiles, right? Like, and had a filth changeup. He could do whatever he wanted and you were done. And there's a certain point where
wait. What was that word?
Fuzz nuggets.
Nugget.
I don't know.
Okay.
I literally made that up and I thought I could get away with it.
Great. That was great. I just want to make sure I heard that right.
Yeah. So this guy's throwing heaters.
Yeah.
All right. And anyway, he's throwing fastballs really hard and then throwing his amazing changeup. But if you're going to have a 20-year career, I mean, eventually you're not going to have the same stuff that you once had. And even Mariano Rivera, his velocity on his cutter did go down over the years. Mm-hmm. And so to counteract that, you do have to be mentally strong. And that's one of the things that when we had with the Brewers, when we had Trevor Hoffman, is that he was really talking about that because his stuff was not what it was 18 years before that. So for him, it was getting prepared, maybe even more, and going out there. And he used to give us tips on, like, here's what I do when I feel anxiety. He said he would pretend that he was writing down negative thoughts on a piece of paper, and he would pretend that he would crumple them up with his hand and then throw them away. So if you look at old film of him throwing, before going out into a game, when he's throwing it in the bullpen, he would just be doing this right here with his hand. Like he would just act like he's crumpling up paper and throwing it out of his brain, because that was what got him ready to run out there. So everybody has their own thing. I would love to know what Mariano Rivera is, and I can add that to my list of stuff. But to be mentally strong and pitch 20 years, they go hand in hand.
Yeah, and if you're thinking that, man, I'm not going to ever play 20 years in the game of baseball or something like that, this same principle applies to anybody that's ever been through an injury as well. I mean, sure. I think anytime you're coming, the need to be mentally tough, right? We talked about these guys as they get older, they don't have the same stuff. I mean, when you're coming back from an injury, you don't have the same stuff.
Yeah.
Right? You don't have the same sharpness to your pitches as you had before. A batter isn't going to have the same, quickness to their swing. You might have to enter a game and not be at your best. So how do you take one from these guys and say, man, how can I be mentally tough here in this moment where I'm trying to get back to being successful, when you don't, I think about Mariano, like the last pitch he threw in that World Series to Luis Gonzalez was the losing pitch, right?
Yeah.
And he had to spend how many months, like that was the last pitch that he threw.
Yeah. Early November all the way till the next pitch he threw in a season would have been early April. That's a long time. That's a long time to sit on a bad pitch. Or it was probably a good pitch because he broke his bat, right?
Yeah, it's a long time to sit on it unless you have the right mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that he wasn't beating himself up all winter. I'm sure he was the kind of guy that was probably like, "No, I did." Like he said before that game, I did what I was supposed to do. He probably did the best he could, and at the end of the day, realized that sometimes you get beat.
Yeah, and Mo got hurt his knee, right? When he blew out his knee in 2012, he came back in 2013, and I want to say he had the same amount of saves as he did from 2011. So that just goes to show you that he, went out there and probably what he does on the field helped him get through that injury. I know he retired the following year after that, but just to come back and say, hey, by the way, I'm pretty dominant before I walk away is pretty impressive.
At the age of what? How old was he when he injured his knee?
40. He was in his 40s, early 40s, 41 or 2 probably.
Wow.
And still came back.
Yeah. I mean, I'm healthy at 35 and
you got 2 good knees.
I got 2 good knees, man. I still can't get anybody out.
Yeah, but just for players out there listening who, maybe maybe there's nobody out there listening that'll, pitch in the big leagues or in a World Series or close games or anything like that. But that doesn't mean you can't still apply things, from a guy like Mariano Rivera outside of baseball. And, for example, I have a player on my team came into my office the other day and he asked me about dropping a class. And I said, well, what class do you want to drop? He said, it's speech class. He goes, he said, I want to take it online. And I said, speech online? How do you do that?
Online?
Isn't that what we're doing right now, though?
And he's like, and I said, and it came out, he said, he's really nervous, just like most people, get really nervous about getting in front of people and speaking, and that's an example of why, learning how to, and that's what I think is mental toughness, is learning how to calm yourself down in those pressure moments, like Mariano Rivera did, because everybody in life is going to encounter these high pressure moments, whether it's a speech class or a job interview or a business sale or, you name it, a doctor doing a surgery or anything. There's these high pressure moments and you have to learn how to really calm yourself down, focus on doing your job and kind of eliminating the other things from your mind. That, to me, that's mental toughness. And I think he really personified that. And I think that's where, things and lessons from observing a player like that can really carry over to, things outside of the game of baseball.
Absolutely. And Tim, you'll know about this more than I would, but as a closer, I got to believe, when you blow a lead or something like that, and then you got to jump right back into it the next night or, you end up feeling like you blow the game for your team, man. And that's a tough thing to have to deal with, but it takes a lot of courage to be able to jump right back into it and say, no, bring it back on. I'm ready. Get me back out there and I'm going to do it well. Talk a little bit about that mindset, what that takes, and how maybe a younger player can start to build that.
Well, if you look up in a thesaurus what consistency is, that's going to be Mariano Rivera, because closers have to be some of the most consistent people out there. And I got a taste of it years ago and blew it. And I had never failed. I went through high school and college, and I don't think anybody ever came in after me. If I started, I ended the game. If I came in relief, I ended the game. That's all I had known. And in 2004, we were in Cedar Rapids in Low A, and I became the closer not long after that. And I'd been doing well. So I go out there and I gave up a game-winning 3-run home run. And I was sitting there in the clubhouse and I was just like, this is unbelievable. This is what is happening right now. This has never happened before. I was like, what somebody else screwed up. It wasn't me. Sorry, guys. It wasn't me. What happened? And our manager used to do meetings after the game every time because you're in low A and you can't, you have to have meetings. You can't get out of them. And he said, listen, he's like, this probably isn't the first time Dillard has blown a save, and it probably won't be the last time. And I was like, this guy doesn't know me. Like, no. I raised my hand. I'm like, listen, Don. Like, it's never happened before. And by golly, as sure as I'm 20 years old, this will never happen again. The next night.
No.
Oh, yeah. The next night.
Come on.
Night. I mean, I was taking
Got you again?
Yeah, got me again. So I get out there, and I'm just like, I'm in trouble early. I was in trouble. I come out, and we have a 3-run lead, and this is right before the first half was over. And in A ball and in AA, you can win halves. If you win the first half, you automatically make playoffs for the end of the season. And so this was a big deal. We win this game, we make playoffs at the end of the year, 2.5 months away. So I was like, I got this. 3-run lead? Psh, I can do that. So I go out there, and it was like double. And I was like, wait, what? I like double.
No.
I only order those from In-N-Out Burger when I'm in Arizona. I was like, this doesn't happen. What's going on? And then it was like a walk, and I was like, oh no. And then like immediately I had all this fear. It was literally how I felt 5 minutes after the game the night before. And that's exactly how I felt when I came set and I threw a hanging slider and the guy belted it off the wall and we ended up losing. And I realized out of that, when I eventually kind of, decompressed and finally figured out what was going on, is that you can't bring the past with you. The past is not going to help you.
That's good.
In a good or bad way. Hey, I've never blown a save before. Who cares? It doesn't matter. It's in the past. And then when I'm on the field after I'd blown one, I was bringing my past with me again. Hey, man, you want to go fail again? No, I don't. Get out of my brain. But going through that, now I know you have to have a short memory in this game. And the closers are some of the best ones in history, because what they're going to do is going to show you consistency. They're going to come back to the field and they're going to show you that, you know what, they got me yesterday. They're not going to get me today. Yesterday is not going to affect me today. I'm the same guy as I was, and I know what I'm doing. And teammates rally around that. If they're not going to rally around you and help you out and be there for you if you're just wavering in and out on every single game because you're inconsistent. Consistency is key, and to me that is what every position player, right, Zoe, wants to see from a pitcher.
Yeah, no doubt. You have to rely on those guys when the game counts the most, and you can see it in a guy's face, in his eyes, when he's not ready for that moment or when he's panicking or he doesn't want to be in that moment. And then you can see it in guys that do, that are just like, yeah, it's almost like every good closer I've ever been around, they kind of have this don't really care kind of attitude.
Yeah, I was about to say, this is rated PG. I don't know what you're going to say. That's good.
Yeah. No, it's just this idea of like, they're either a little bit off their rocker, or they're very level-headed, so level-headed that like Mariano feels like they don't even have a heartbeat. Like they don't even care. Like it's like, oh yeah, okay. They have the same demeanor when they're eating lunch as they do when they're closing the game.
I'm going to go on a limb here and say that Mariano Rivera is really good at Jenga. Like I feel like he's got a steady hand. I bet he's just holding that little block.
I didn't see you going there either, Tim. I didn't see that one coming. Jenga.
I kind of want to play Jenga.
Hey, I'll say this too. I got one more Mariano story. So turns out that after my jerk move in 2009, I actually did play in another All-Star game.
Oh.
And 2013, I actually didn't play in that one, but I got nominated to be in it. And it happened to be Mariano's last year. That was the year he was retiring, 13. Nice. And so he made the All-Star game. They brought him in, I want to say the 8th inning or something like that, 7th or 8th inning. And they took him out of the game in the middle of the inning after he threw like one pitch, basically got one out. And it was a really special moment for baseball, special moment to have Mariano there.
Yeah.
That was his last All-Star game. And the cool thing about that is he addressed the entire team in the clubhouse. I think it was before the game. they basically gave him the floor and said, Mariano, whatever you want to say, this game is for you. This is your game. And he, of course, was like, no, this is not. I don't want this to be about my last time here or anything like that. But he said, I will say this. He said, I will say this. Remember that this game, he said, I played this game for a long time. He said, this game, we have so much fun playing it, but remember that it goes very fast. He said, every moment, enjoy every moment of it. He said, because before you know it, it's going to be done. Your time in the game is going to be done, and you just have to savor every moment. And I never forget, like, the conviction in his voice, as he said that to the group. And, so ever since that time, I remember, that's how you want to feel. You want to feel like you savored it and you did the best you could to be a successful player. But at the end of the day, like, you're not going to play the game forever. Everybody's going to retire, whether it's at 13 or 43, you're going to retire from the game of baseball. And it is a joy to play the game. And I really think that Mariano, it seemed like he loved it. He loved the game. Before the game, whether he was shagging flies, whether he was goofing around with teammates, or whether he was out there actually doing his job really, really well, you could tell he really enjoyed it.
We need to be reminded of that so much, don't we? I mean, because we're in the middle of the grind of the season or the ups and the downs, and we lose that perspective so quick. To make the most of every single moment you have, to find the joy in it, like Mariano said. I mean, we got to remind each other of that as coaches and teammates constantly, because that perspective is really fleeting.
Well, it keeps things in the moment. If you're looking too far in the past, looking too far in the future. I spoke to some high school kids the other day, and I was like, what do you share with high school kids? I didn't know what to say, and I didn't know if they would listen to a crazy bearded guy, right? Because I look borderline homeless. They're like, should we feed this guy or listen to him? I don't know.
Borderline.
Borderline, yeah. So I was thinking about what to say, and I was like, I encourage them to stay in the moment. And what that is realizing that what you're going to miss about this game is the camaraderie with the people that are around you in the clubhouse. I've never run across an old teammate that was like, hey, man, I wish I could go back out there and do more PFPs, or I wish I could go back out there and, and face down a hitter. I never hear that. Never. And I have a lot of old teammates. They always say, dude, you remember that time the bus broke down and we were like spelling help on the side of the road and rocks? How'd we get through that? And man, I miss being in the dugout or hanging out in the bullpen. Like, to me, that's staying in the moment. That's not getting too far ahead, too far behind, or focusing on things that don't matter in the long run. And you're right. You can't play this game forever. And what you're going to find out is the things that you miss are the people that are around you. And a lot of guys, it takes them 5 years removed for them to understand that. I encourage those guys, and I encourage everybody, like, just wherever you're at, enjoy it. Find a way to enjoy it, because that's what you're going to miss the most.
Are those kind of competing interests at times, though? Staying in the moment and trying to be super consistent like a guy like Mariano was?
I would say that helps him, though. I would say that helps him, because when you're staying in the moment and you're focused on everybody around you and what's going on in the conversation and things like that, it takes your mind away from the worry part of baseball, I think. Because when I'm goofing off and shooting videos in the clubhouse or doing whatever I'm doing, which no one can really understand, I don't know what I'm doing ever. But what it does is the last thing I worry about is the game. It doesn't make me a lesser player. What it does is it removes that worry. I have joy all day. I go out on the mound and I'm like, man, this is amazing. I love being out here. But as a pitcher, you want to get off the mound as quickly as possible. So you're like, man, I love this. Get somebody out. And then, man, I'm in the dugout. Coach says you're done. And then have a great time. Like to me, it takes away that anxiety of the game and lets you have fun with it, because this game has a lot of pressure. It has a lot of anxiety that comes with it, and it's how you deal with that.
Coach, what do you got?
Man, I just can't.
We're losing him.
No,
Are you
no,
watching
no,
TV in the background? If that TV's on, unbelievable.
I was trying to think about your questions, though. Is it a competing interest? Maintaining that consistency, and trying to stay in the moment. I think they can both happen. I think that's just a goal that every player should have is that consistently comes through, your performance. You want it to be consistent, but it's the other stuff that has to be consistent. Your preparation, the way you communicate, how you carry yourself, who you are has to be the consistent thing. And I just think that's a continuous goal that every player should have, is just kind of staying in the moment. Trying not to live in the past or in the future too much. And, I think they can happen simultaneously.
Well, it loosens your grip. It loosens your grip on the game. If you're holding so tightly as a pitcher to every single pitch, then there needs to be some sort of release on that. And where does that come from? And that comes from getting your focus off of why that's so important to you. As a hitter, it's like all you care about is hits. It's that, to me, is when guys get into an unhealthy place, a very toxic place, because it's all turned in and they're just like so focused, and everything, is just riding on that one hit, that one at bat, and they're putting so much pressure on themselves, and it just becomes a spiral. And the only way out of that I have found is that, it's not about you all the time. Your craft is going to be fine. It doesn't mean you work less. If anything, it just lets you focus on everyone else around you, and you get to go out there and enjoy what you're doing.
Yeah, and I think the preparation side that you mentioned, consistent preparation combined with that ability to stay in the moment when you've already prepared is really the sweet spot that you want to get to. If you start with just staying in the moment and you're not prepared, well, then it's going to be a rough moment, because you're going to blow something. You're going to beat yourself up because you're like, man, I should have been more prepared than I was. Likewise, you don't only think about preparation and only think about the game. Like, I gotta be able to, you're stressing about this thing the whole time. You got to stop that too. There's a balance there between the two, I think. Yeah.
This is good stuff, man. Who knew we could talk, for an hour about Mariano Rivera and get so many, you could talk forever about him, but there's a lot of things that are definitely applicable and practical to young players. I think there's a lot to be learned there.
Well, if we're gonna wrap up here, is that what you're getting at?
It's time.
I'll be honest.
Maybe people want to listen to us a little longer. I don't know. But if we're wrapping up,
where are we at here? I don't even know how long we've been talking.
When you're talking about somebody like Mariano Rivera as a pitcher, and looking at somebody that had a 20-year career and did everything right. Every story that you hear, you never hear anything negative. You never hear anything bad. So number one, it's character. The guy has character. I don't care who you talk to, teammates or people that he's played against. The guy has character. And even if you only play for a year or you only play for a month or a day or only play Little League, character is important. Another thing too is being able to evolve. You do not play this long in this game without being able to evolve. And even though he may have thrown the same type of pitch and, same type of mechanics, all the stuff that goes into that is where the change and evolution comes from, because you're not the same guy at 35 that you are at, 45. There's going to be some change in there. It may look the same on the field, but there's some, changes to how you work out and things like that. So I would just encourage people like, hey, look for character. Character is number one in everything that you do, but at the same time, be willing to evolve and change with the times, or, if there's an injury or something like that, like you have to be able to change and evolve. Don't get steadfast too much in your ways.
The biggest takeaway for me, from this whole talk, I think is, his mental toughness one, but probably more importantly than that is, his speech in that All-Star game about savoring every single moment. You can't beat that drum enough, I think, just to reinforce that to players. And it is fleeting, and it is truly a gift, for us to be involved with baseball, for players to get to play this. And it's a shame if you don't enjoy every moment you have with the gift you've been given.
Yeah, that's really good. I'll say this, my takeaway, Mariano's a very generous guy. I'm sorry, but not sorry about stealing his save ball. No, but for real, it was such a privilege to be able to play against a player of that caliber, and to have even my minutia of success against a guy like that, that's one thing when people ask me the question, hey, who's a guy that you were able to do well off that, you really, really think of? And he's the guy. I mean, if you've ever had a really big hit against a guy and it was a guy like that, I mean, of course, that's something that that makes my career to a certain degree. It's a privilege to play against guys like that. And remember that, every person that plays this game that's really, really good, and you're stepping on the same field with them, or you're just watching them, recognize the gift that's there. And Mariano recognized it in himself, that God had given this gift to him. We can recognize it in other people and, really praise God for the opportunity to play against, with, just watch a player like that and the gift of what they're able to do. That's the beauty of baseball, and the skill that people are building is it's something to be celebrated, even if it's not you and your success, even if it's somebody else's. And, hats off to him. He's definitely deserving of the first ever unanimous Hall of Fame votes.
Yep. Pretty amazing.
That's a wrap, boys.
That's a wrap. Hey, great topic. Mariano Rivera is just, he's king of the castle, and he's awesome, and he's humble. So definitely a lesson there. Well, that does it for this episode of Show and Go. If you have any questions or comments, topics you'd like to hear discussed on future episodes, feel free to interact with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at The Show and Go. And make sure to visit our website at theshowandgo.com. And if you haven't written us a review by now, let's just get on that, because for some reason it matters. And we need your review and all those stars. So let's get on it. Let's make that happen. And we didn't even talk about J Money, really, right? Not being here. So a fourth. J Money, yeah. Yeah. And we didn't bring up the fact that I was wearing the scarf, and that helps out a lot too for me. So, but on behalf of myself, Zoe, not J Money, and Coach, thanks for listening, and join us next time on
the show and go
remotely. Yeah, we'll have to sync that up. I don't know how that works.